So let's go ahead and get started. What's going on, guys? How y'all doing? I know I said I was gonna give you a Guardian guide. This is gonna be kind of a pretty straightforward guide for now, and then we're gonna get a more in-depth guide later on. So we're just gonna go over her awakening stuff, just to kind of show you real quick. So this is just her C swap. It does have a forward guard C swap when you go from awakening to unawakening. I mean, from unawakening to awakening. I believe it's forward guard. Normally when I do it, it's forward guard, but I typically don't do it much because you can use other skills to go into awakening. This is her E buff. It's very similar to her unawakened E buff. The difference is that it now has 10 seconds of super armor. So when you proc it, you have super armor for 10 seconds. That's like the main thing. This is her grab. Some people prefer her unawakened grab. Some people prefer her awakened grab. It's up to you which one you want. It's really up to you. It's the same cooldown. But yeah, so I'll show you her grab. Her grab range is about this far right here. You can't cancel it though. So that's why some people prefer her unawakening grab, because it's you can cancel it and can be shorter. Okay. This is her iframe. She has a sidestep, forward step, back step iframe in awakening. You can't spam it. It's a 3-second cooldown, and it gives you move speed just like her unawakened one. Cool thing is you can use that in unawakening at any given time. Just you got to go side to side or backwards. If you try to go forward with it, you'll do your forward step shield like thing first instead. So again, from unawakening, you just sidestep or backstep. Some really cool thing that you can do, because you can use her unawakened iframe from her awakening as well. So a really cool thing that you can do, if you want to extend your iframe duration, you can do your awakened iframe into her unawakened iframe, like so. To have kind of further of an iframe, longer of an iframe. I'll do it again. I'll start right here and I'll show you just sideways. Okay. Sometimes you can kind of bait people with that because they don't realize, they don't understand, they don't recognize it. You can also do like a back step into this, so you can still get that stiffness in the same spot. Yeah, so it's pretty nice. Welcome to the party, pal. So I'm gonna go over the skills. So again, I'm going over the skills, and then I will go and focus, kind of explain the PvE rotation, the more important skills. This is just your auto attack. You guys can kind of have fun with that, but I don't really ever really use it, to be honest. Okay. So her down left mouse button. This is her skill that you're gonna want to try to keep up from time to time. Just the first hit of it. Her down left mouse button has kind of like a big part, like a lot of hits, but you only need the first hit to get attack speed buff. This gives you attack speed buff for 10 seconds. It starts off at 10% attack speed, and at max rate is 20% attack speed. So it's nice to have. It's pretty easy to keep up in her rotation. I'll explain the PvE rotations later. Now going on to the right side, her shift right mouse button is a pretty big damaging skill. So I would definitely recommend you leveling both of these up for sure. Especially PvE. It has a bound, and then I believe a down smash. Or the bound is the first hit, and the second hit is a down smash. We're going over to the right. After that is the right mouse button. I don't actually use this skill. It's PvE only, I believe. CC, so it's kind of meh. And yeah. I believe it's PvE only. I could be wrong on that. So after that, it's her right mouse button flow. This, as you can see, has extremely high damage as well. And it's super armor, and it's another bound. So if for some reason you miss the bound on this one, you could potentially get the bound there. This is a pretty important skill too in her PvE rotation, so I recommend you getting it. So going down is her forward F skill. This is just your shield charge, except you can now get the awakened version. In order to get it, you have to have learned level 3 of her unawakened version. So you have to actually have this leveled up to get her awakened version of the shield charge. Same with her grab, is you have to have I believe the absolute version of her unawakened grab to level this to get this. And no, you cannot use both grabs. If you have one leveled up, you can't use the other, as you could see. Now this skill here, some people may refer to it as their spacebar flow. It's kind of very similar to Dark Knight's skill. I think it's called Lunacy or Spirit Legacy, one of the two, where she has like the giant bubble explosion in front of her. I'll use it right here so you can see it. It's kind of similar, just a different effect, and it doesn't have protection on it, and it doesn't have CC in PvP. This skill gives you 20 AP for 10 seconds, and it's a lot of damage. So I definitely would recommend you leveling this up. You can put it on the hotbar, so you don't have to flow it after anything. And that's typically how I like to use it. It's part of my PvE rotation, which again, I'll talk about after the skills. So let's move in down. For F skill, that's a stun. You don't really need that in PvE, so you don't have to worry about leveling it up in PvE. But if you have extra skill points, you could potentially use it in PvP. So this skill here, this skill is her iframe kind of mobility skill. She kind of like launches herself forward, kind of like a phoenix or a dragon or whatever the crap it is. It's iframe, and when she lands, it's super armor. But the recovery animation, for me, when I've tried it and tested it in Korea, the recovery animation was not protected at all. So you have to make sure you cancel out of it. I'll show you that skill right now, and you guys can see. So I typically just cancel out of it with a sidestep. You can also cancel that skill early by pressing left mouse button, which I'll show you in about 5 seconds. So here we go. When you cancel it early, if you want to, if you want to land somewhere early, just press left mouse button. Again, that recovery animation after she after her axe starts to come up from the ground, it's not protected, so you want to sidestep out of it or get out of it. So let's keep going. Right here is her forward right mouse button. This skill is really nice. It's a super armor while you're dashing, and it has points of it to where it's an iframe. I'll explain that in a second. The actual attack part is floating, and that part is not protected. I repeat, it's not protected. So be very careful on when you use this skill, because if a player sees it coming, they can potentially counter CC you. So the iframe part of it is pretty interesting. What happens is if you land the attack part and you hold right mouse button, you'll do like a teleport 3 times, kind of like that. The parts that are iframe are when you're invisible, but when you're not invisible, you can get hit. It's not iframe, it's not protected whatsoever. So again, be very careful. This skill is seemingly decent, but it does have gaps of non-protection, so you have to be very cautious. It has air attack and I believe down attack as well, so it's kind of cool. It's kind of weird. Sometimes it seems like I do a lot of damage with this skill, and other times it seems like I don't. It could be an accuracy thing, I'm not sure. But yeah, the cool thing with this, actually, if you can actually proc this skill from her teleport or dash by pressing right mouse button. You just have to make sure you're hitting somebody to get the iframe part. So I'll show you here. Press right mouse button. It does the float part, and if you land it, hold right mouse button to get the iframe part. Now the other cool thing about this forward right mouse button skill, you don't have to use it as an attack. You can use it as a safe super armor mobility. If you tap forward right mouse button, you just do the forward super armor dash part, which you can use to get through somebody like that as well. The thing is, it doesn't have any lingering protection, so as soon as you finish, you have to either quickly follow it up with a skill or another mobility. Alright, so now we're moving on to this skill. This is actually a flow to one of her other skills, so we're gonna go to the left and talk about these skills here. So this is her down right mouse button. This is another skill you probably don't need right away. It's a float and air attack, I believe. You can use it as another, as a variation for CC. It's not protected, but you know, it's still useful from time to time, but it's not needed. It's probably one of the skills you don't need to level up right away, especially if you're doing PvE. This skill here, Shift Q, it's super armor. It's minus 20 DP for 10 seconds. And I believe it's 50 HP per hit. The CC is only in PvE, so you don't need to worry about any CC and PvP on this skill. But it's a lot of damage. It's really nice. It's really useful. I'm going to show you something with this skill along with this flow. So if you hold Q after her Shift Q, it'll do that flow. But the cool thing is, as you can see, her Shift Q has a long startup animation. Right? You can actually cancel that startup animation by doing that flow or spacebar skill first by putting it on the hotbar into Shift Q. See? So put this on the hotbar, use it into Shift Q. It stops the cancel startup animation, and it gives you a 20 AP buff before you proc this skill. This skill, her Shift Q, is also a down attack. And you can put both on hotbar, and both can be used from unawakened to awakening as well, which is really nice. So now we're going to go down here to Shift F. This skill is pretty interesting. It's super armor, and it doesn't have any CC and PvP, but it does have an 18% accuracy buff for 10 seconds, and it lowers their AP for 10 seconds. It's a pretty heavy hitting skill as well. You can put that on your hotbar as well, which is really nice. And the first part, as you can see in the animation, she swings her axe around first and then hits. When you swing the axe around, that doesn't do any damage. The hit is after that. So be cautious of that. Just be wary. When I was first doing the skill, I thought I was just like maybe not doing any damage at the start. I was so confused. The CC does not count in PvP, only in PvE. It's a pretty solid skill. It's part of my PvE rotation. I really like it, and let's keep going. So now our shift left mouse button. This skill is pretty crazy. The skill is forward guard the entire time, not just in cast, unlike her unawakened version. It has high damage. It got nerfed in PvP by 30% because it was actually incredibly high in damage. I'm going to actually show you a clip right now to show you kind of even after the nerf, it can still do really well as long as I can find the clip. Here we go. So these guys were constantly trying to kill me, and actually a few times did kill me in between my scrolls. So I decided I'd pay them the favor back. These guys were all about similar AP as me, and I believe they all had around 320 to 340 DP. There's 4 of them. So I decide to pop my E buff. I hold my Shift L and B. As soon as they finish, I use it. I get 2 kills, and I get the other 2 guys incredibly low. As you can see here. This was after the nerf. Unfortunately, though, I couldn't finish the kill because they iframed in Sorks. But yeah, so even with the so-called nerf, it's still a pretty strong skill. And again, it's forward guard. Now, the really cool thing is, going back to this flow, it does the damage of this times 1. So whichever charge level you have it on, it's times 1. Up to 6 targets, I believe. Or maximum of 6 hits. I don't remember exactly which one. So it's really nice, and this is super armor. So the first part is forward guard, the right mouse button flow is super armor. You cannot put this on the hotbar, meaning you can't do this from unawakening. But it's still really nice. If you pop your E buff and then use this skill, you don't have to charge it. You just tap it and it'll be the max charging. So I'll show you. So I'll show you when you pop your E buff and you use it. You don't have to tap it. It'll just be the max charging. The other interesting point of this is the higher the charge level, the further the range of this skill. But if you pop your E buff, you just get the max charge. and then you can right mouse button right after. So again, the forward guard into super armor. It doesn't have any CC in PvP, only PvE. So that's kind of it in terms of the main skills. I would basically everything but her down right mouse button, her right mouse button, and her F skill. The rest of the skills I would definitely recommend you getting for PvE and even PvP. These 3 skills are ones you can kind of start to upgrade afterwards, or yeah. But besides that, the other ones are the main ones. I'm going to show you her PvE rotation really quick. It's really simple. All it is you start off with your Shift F, her Awaken Shift F, because that gives you the accuracy buff and lowers their AP, and it aggroes the mobs in a pretty wide area in case they're not there yet. Right after that, you use that flow, which I put on the hotbar. You use that skill because it gives you 20 AP, it acts as a vacuum, and it does some pretty good damage as well. So it brings them closer to you, and then right after that, you go into your Awaken Shift Q, because if you do that after her vacuum skill, you cancel the startup animation, and that also lowers their DP by 20. And then after that, you pop your down LMB and just shift right mouse button, and the right mouse button flow. Now, the reason why you pop this after the other 3 is because at the start, you don't really need attack speed for these 2 skills because you literally go straight into the skill. You cancel the animation on it. And this skill, at the start, you're literally using to aggro the mobs. So it's not that bad. And then you keep the attack speed up for 10 seconds, meaning by the time you go back around, the attack speed buff will still be up. It's just the first part, you won't have it up, of course. You can keep this up as much as you want whenever you want to pop it, if you want to pop it earlier. And her Shift F, what was I going to say? Oh, by the time you finish her Shift right mouse and right mouse button flow, everything should be off cooldown. To go back to Shift F and into the flow, into Shift Q, down LMB, Shift right mouse button, right mouse button. Shift left mouse button and right mouse button flow, they could act as fillers if you ever do need to, or if you ever need to do something that's like protected and high damage, you can always pop those in. And forward right mouse button, actually you don't really need in PvE. I would still recommend getting it because you can use it as mobility, as well as her down F to get to the next packs. So I'm going to show you her PvE rotation. Again, it's Shift F into her vacuum, Shift Q, into down LMB, Shift right mouse button, and right mouse button flow. We're actually going to use these mobs here. Hopefully I can get both of them here. Right here. And again, Shift F is back on cooldown. And Shift Q is, and you continue. Normally at my gear, Ackman mobs, you kill them within the first full combo. Unless some mobs kind of maybe sometimes might be outside of the area and you just kind of wait. Now, if you are fighting mobs that you can't CC, you can't knock down, in between her Shift F or after her Shift Q, you can kind of iframe yourself behind the mobs like so. Shift F, iframe, iframe. You know, and then if you need to continue, you can kind of in between some of those skills, you can kind of just position yourself differently. So one other thing I want to mention with her attack speed buff, it does not tack with your Z buff. So if you absorb your Z, it gives you 25% attack speed. It does not stack, as you can see, with down LMB. So if you pop your Z buff, then you don't have to worry about even using this at the start. If you're killing mobs like poly 4s and stuff, you can kind of just like one-shot the mobs. So I don't really think I need to tell you a rotation for that because you're one-shotting mobs. You just keep up forward momentum. And that's basically it. So skill add-ons. Okay, so my skill add-ons are as followed. Let me go ahead and leave here so I can go over my skill add-ons. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it, Sexus. Can I use a map? I can't use a map. Oh, shit. What's the closest skill add-on guy? Is this person? Can I talk to this guy about my skill add-ons? I think I can. Let's go back. So while we're going back, I can actually just talk about her unawakened, what skills you probably will want to keep. At the beginning, the bare minimum, I would recommend you keeping her iframe. If you're doing a lot of PvP and stuff, if you're doing a lot of PvP, then you definitely want to get this to at least rank 3 for the lower cooldown of the iframe. You can keep this, you can let go of it, it's up to you. I mean, I rarely actually use it, I probably don't need it, but just to be safe, if I need to extend my super armor, I have it. You cannot use your unawakened shifty because I have the awakened version. Her F skill, I really never... Well, I'm stuck. Her F skill, I really don't use, except from time to time for a potential CC punish. So that's why it's not leveled up. And then her down F, I just don't use. The thing about her down F is, while yes, it does have like down attack damage, it's fairly low. It's just 5%, which I mean, it's okay, but like it's a long animation and it's just not. Overall, the general consensus with a lot of the players that I talked to in Korea as well, it just doesn't feel like it's worth going out of your way for. Her down E is definitely worth getting and keeping. And yes, you can use her down E just from awakening, just from the key inputs of down E, which is really nice. As you can see, I'll go over like in another video exactly how to go, like a bunch of different ways to go in between awakening and unawakening, along with some more mobility and whatnot. This is just to kind of give you guys a basic kind of thing. Her spacebar, I mean, it's crit damage buff, and I don't know, it's forward guard, and the higher it is, the lower the cooldown, so I kept it for PvP. For PvE, you probably don't need it, because it's 5% crit damage at the beginning anyways. And honestly, I don't actually keep it up all the time, just because it's slow. It's kind of a slow skill, so I don't keep it up all the time. Her down LMB and down LMB RMB, you don't really use that in PvE. And PvP, they are useful once you have some extra skill points, but you don't need them right away. Especially because if you're using them for protection, you kind of can keep them at the base and be okay. Her jump, her jump is probably not needed, but I kind of just have it just because I have the extra skill points and I'm trying to get everything up that I really want in Awakening. But for bare minimum thing, you probably don't need it unless you need an extra escape. Her shift LMB, PvP probably will be nice to have, but that's probably one of the more important skills you'd want in PvP for her Unawakening, if you have the extra skill points. So her block, obviously, I don't actually like to use the right mouse button from her block, and I don't like to use this skill as well. So I have those locked. Her forward F, like I said, you actually have to level her forward F if you want the awakened version. Her E, her grab is the same. If you want the awakened version, you have to level it up. Some people opt to keep with her unawakened grab instead. Possibly because you have the ability to cancel it if you fuck up. Her forward right mouse, her shift forward, it's probably worth upgrading if you have the skill points and you are PvPing. I haven't bothered upgrading it because I don't have enough skill points. Her shift F, definitely if you're PvPing, I would recommend getting it. It's minus 20 DP for 10 seconds and high AoE, pretty decent damage, so I'd recommend getting it. And its protection. If you have the skill points, all of her protected unawakening would definitely be nice to have because it allows you more options when you're trying to super armor trade against players and trying to do some protected damage or CC. I'm working on upgrading her shift Q and stuff, so that's why. Again, at the start you probably don't need these, but if you get the extra skill points, you probably want to start to get her shift Q, and then again, the same thing with these skills. Probably will be nice to have once you have the extra skill points, but at the start you don't really need them. In PvE, you pretty much don't really need almost anything in Unawakening except for maybe her iframe sidestep, her spacebar skill. That's really the only ones maybe sometimes I use in PvE now. PvP, like I said, all of her protection, you'll eventually want to level up and stuff. And yeah, so let's go talk about her skill add-ons. So for her skill add-ons, I kind of have things a little different. We'll go ahead and talk about those in 1 second. Okay, so for skill add-ons, I'll go through her awakening versions first that I have, and then I'll go through her unawakening. So for her shift Q, I have 10 PvP AP, and then I also have move speed for 4% for 10 seconds, increased move speed. The reason why I have those, PvP AP, because typically in my combo I'm almost normally using that. So just increase the extra damage on it. Typically it's at the end of a combo, so I want that extra damage to hopefully make sure I get the kill. The move speed is in case for some reason they start to get up and I don't actually kill them, at least I have some extra move speed to get out of there, disengage and prep for the next engagement. Okay, so her shift F, I have 25 PvE AP because it's in my, I'm constantly using this skill in my rotation, in my PvE rotation, and you can keep this up at all times, and you don't have to go out the way to use another skill. It also has 15 DP for 10 seconds. The reason why I do that is because it's a super armor skill, so in PvP, if I'm using it to trade, at least I get the DP, extra DP to help me potentially win the trade. But also, I like to have at least one skill that I use often. Having it, like, personally, I like to have extra DP on one of the skills just to kind of help me defensively a little bit. And so now we go down to her. This is her flow, the hotbar. So this I have, actually have 10 DP for 10 seconds on this, as well as 4% attack speed for 5 seconds. The attack speed is really nice because in my PvP combo I use this skill into shift Q, and PvE I do it as well, so it's stacked with her down LMB attack speed. So it's just always having that extra attack speed is just nice to have on a skill that I use constantly. Alright, so I'm gonna go over some awakened PvP combos that you can do. There's a lot. I'm gonna have a more in-depth guide that goes over them. But just really quick for you guys, since I know you guys are getting it right now, let's just go over some pretty simple basic ones that you can do. If you have enough AP, which is actually, oh, well, look, I'm overweight. Huh. Alright, if you have enough AP, you can do something super easy as grab into her flow, her hotbar, into shift Q. And a lot of times that can actually kill without doing like a double CC combo. Now, for some reason, let's say that doesn't work and you actually like need more damage. You can do her grab. Oh, well, the grab failed. That's great. Because Guardian grab. Okay, so you can do her grab into Shift F and just shift right mouse button. And that's actually really high damage that can kill as well. So that's really nice. Basically, I mean, you guys kind of see it. The other thing that you can do is one of the more popular ones in career is her grab into Shift F into her sidestep RMB to stun, into her Shift LMB, and then spacebar skill Shift Q. Not stun, a stiffness. So the way that works is her grab into Shift F for damage and accuracy buff, into her sidestep RMB, which is a stiffness, into her unawakened Shift LMB, which, I mean, you need her Shift LMB to be leveled up to do, for a knockdown. And then you finish off with this heavy hitting combo of her flow or her hotbar skill. I don't know the actual name of this skill, into Shift Q. These two alone do incredibly high damage, especially because this gives you 20 PvE and 20 AP, and this lowers their DP by 20. So it's really high damage combo. If you want to stay in pure awakening and you want to try something similar in a combo, you can do grab, Shift F, down RMB for a float into her spacebar flow hotbar skill into Shift Q. Another combo that you can do, a lot of it ends with these two skills because it's just such a high execution, is a grab. Oh, well, if grab lands. One of my favorite go-to combo, to be honest, is this her grab, Shift F, and a Shift RMB. You can also do Shift F, Shift RMB into these two skills as well. if you want if you just need the shift army for a bound.